Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Bryan Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Bryan are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Bibbo. I am beyond excited to share this podcast with you. We have Florida's own Fred Taylor on the podcast. You know him from the Jacksonville Jaguars. You know him from the Florida Gators, soon to be a Hall of Famer. But it was just an uncut, raw conversation that I had with him. He came into the office, we hit it off. He's going to be at a client appreciation event, and we just had an in-depth conversation. We talked about so many great things, from religion, injuries, mental health, raising children. Super excited to hear this. Let's get into it.
It's amazing the more you learn about just everything that encompasses yourself as a small business, because that's what we are. Exactly. Players don't understand that they are a business entity and they have to treat themselves accordingly. And more than, just being an athlete, when you transition from the game into your second career, people ask me all the time, what's retirement like? No such thing as retirement.
Right.
It's a career change, because now I have to also learn to micromanage my day-to-day, my entire schedule, start prepping for real retirement, with learning annuities, life insurance, different asset protection vehicles, all that different stuff. So I'm still in school. I continue to go forward. I continue to try to use the things that happen to me to try to help others, but also continuing to educate myself as I go. It's never a dull moment with me.
And life's a journey, right? The goal is to learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And keep it moving. Yeah. And I have the same kind of background. I started with J.L. Smith 15 years ago, right during the recession of 2008, 2009. We call it kind of a depression, right?
Right.
With the stock market crashing 50%, all that great stuff. And I took whatever job I could get. They hired me as the intern to start off. I was doing tax returns for them, so on and so forth. So I get it. Like, the brand is so important. Your brand and what you are and where it's going into the future. Like, you Google your name, everything comes up. I Google my name, all these publications I've been in and everything else pop up, and you got to look at that every day.
Right.
And you're always in a public figure.
Yeah, it's just that interconnectivity of the internet, the web. It's a continuous, that's what technology is. It's just a bridge to a bridge to a bridge. And it always comes back full circle. So, for you were fortunate. You didn't know that this is something you was going to do or actually enjoy, but here you are. The same with myself, where I am now. I'm a podcaster. And some people say, well, you're a YouTuber, you're a journalist. And, I embrace it. Not to say this is what I set out to be in life, but I do know that it allows me a voice and a platform, but also allows me an opportunity to give back. I've always said I want to be charitable, and a philanthropist, and make sure I give back. I actually, I dissolved my own personal foundation some years ago after helping kids in underprivileged areas in the neighborhoods and communities, because it was so much work, right? And at the time, I didn't understand that you have to run it. It's a small business. And the people that were working for me were just all volunteers. So I didn't want to take food off their plates from the time that I would require from them to make it as successful as I thought it could be. So I kind of fell back from that, but my heart was still big as gold. And I wanted to always continue to help people. And I did. I would donate behind the scenes or what have you. But now, as a podcast host, through conversations, I'm able to share my stories, which can be helpful to any and everyone, because we pride ourselves on transparency, on vulnerability. And we know tons and tons of college guys, high school guys, kids in the youth programs, their parents, they're all listening to these messages. So it has been a journey. I never thought I would find myself there, much like what you just said from being here at JL. But I can assure you that we probably have the same mindset and wanted to do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Really, you have turned into a journalist. The world has changed. If you think about it, growing up, we used to watch the night news or whatever it is, and that's where we get our information from. But now that seems more and more far. You don't feel like you're getting the truth, right?
Correct.
So we have people like us on these podcasts and everything having real conversations with people,
Right.
and you go, wow, I actually felt like I got the truth from them. It's that great shift I've seen. So the journalists live on YouTube. The journalists live on podcasts. Like, that's where so many people I know and myself get their media from, their data from, everything else.
Right. Which has been beneficial to a lot, and I've learned to carve through, the weeds, because again, talking about that connectivity and so much stuff being on the internet, you can get lost. It's easy to go left and go down that rabbit hole, and you find yourself like, I just wasted an hour for what? So you have to make sure it's done purposefully and with mindfulness, right? I think when I'm out here, I just want to make sure I'm sharing right information, because once I step in the door and people meet me and they see me, I want them to see 100% me, right? What I say on the show is going to always carry, because it's going to be backed up, and this is how I am every single day. So I don't have anything to hide, really, when I am in journalist mode. And again, when you're truthful, when you're honest, when you move with integrity and the right message, then you can help save tons and tons of people, which I believe we've done that by the messages that we get in our DMs, emails, comments, so it makes it easier to continue to show up.
Yeah, you're also an educator too. Educate people along the way, right? You are, right? People listen to, unfortunately, the world that we live in, people listen to social media more than they listen to their teachers at school and stuff like that. So your influence is strong across the board. But I want to talk about like spirituality, those kind of things. Because I look at the situation with Brandon Marshall that you ran into, right, with the whole podcast, and I go, man, God is good. And that's just what I believe, and I'm not trying to preach religion to you, but I go, look at how it turned out for you in the long run, right?
Correct. Right. And we just did something not too long ago when we spoke about Easter. We talked about the resurrection. You talk about God. You talking about, God being risen. And that's the ultimate pivot. The resurrection is the ultimate pivot. There are some people who believe they are buried, not knowing they're just planted, and their season of growth is about to happen, which is their pivot. And the same thing that happened with the Brandon situation, unfortunately, a lot of it was tied to business.
Right.
And I believe for myself personally, that was my last moment of feeling that I was going to allow someone to take advantage of me, because it's happened before. Right. And I believe that was the third strike in my life. And this was someone who I cherished as a friend. And I went forward saying there won't be any hard feelings. But I have to use this as a learning moment. If I'm going to involve myself in business ventures and different opportunities, this is the type of sternness and conviction you're going to have where when you make these decisions to move forward, you don't look back. And the decision we made to pivot and move forward obviously worked out for the best for us, for myself personally. It allowed me to grow. It allowed me to be able to educate and share these experiences and these situations with other people who might want to enter this space. You have to have the paperwork done. When it's in the black and white ink, when that ink is dry and this is what it says, this is what you go by and abide by. And unfortunately, we didn't have paperwork in that startup. We allowed the friendship to get in front of the business of everything.
The handshake deal. Someone you've known for years.
Right, right. And that happens in sports. Most recently, someone was upset with Chad Ochocinco about not doing a deal with them because they didn't want Chad to involve his people who vets all of his deals. Chad was like, no, I don't do handshake deals.
Right.
I have people in place that I pay to take care of these things. And I think that's what all athletes need to do. Now, pay attention to the deals. You know, look at them the best you can for the best you understand it. But you pay people to do these things, and they have fiduciary to get it done, you know, the right way. So, again, this was just one of those moments that was another teachable moment that we had an opportunity to share with anyone that's getting in that space or with anyone that might want to do a handshake deal with, you know, one of their close friends, thinking, well, I've known this person for 10 plus, 15 plus years. Business is business.
Right.
And without the paperwork, anything can collapse and kind of fall apart.
And money changes people. We see it all the time.
Yes.
We see it with clients who are no longer with us, and maybe they have 3 kids, 5 kids, whatever it may be, and they inherit XYZ dollars, and it gets nasty.
Right.
Kids start going after each other. Actually, my business partner with his family, he was one of 11 kids. One of the kids is no longer with us, but it's still going in court when the father passed away because they thought this person was doing shady deals, suing this, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's the point. Money changes people.
Right. And it goes back to paperwork because something as simple as a will and a trust, you know, and once you have these things in place, this is the documentation. This is how it reads. You simplify things. You avoid probate, and everybody go on their merry way. Save a lot of time, which is invaluable. And you can do a lot more with your time than arguing over dollars that are gonna actually be chewed up because of attorney fees and, you know, court fees and having to fight just to try and get in position to get something back. And it's unfortunate for those people. But again, I've learned to be able to lean on the law, you know, and the law protects us a lot. And when we have those items and mechanisms in place, we're better for it. So it goes back for me, the stuff that happened. And I have all different types of life insurance policies, whole life, IUL. I mean, I have every different type of policy out there, but I've also learned to, with those policies in the annuities and just everything I have, from identifying who my beneficiaries are, from putting these things in revocable or irrevocable trust vehicles, asset protection, you know, was something that was big. After being in situations that could have gotten me sued in terms of protecting myself because we own real estate.
Right.
So we have, you know, for example, family limited liability partnerships, and we kind of wrap the trust and everything around those things, and then we have to go through there and layer it through our LLCs so that everything's protected, but also give us enough space to where we can still utilize the assets and leverage them to continue to try to build out.
Yeah, for this generation, the next generation.
Correct.
Making sure everyone's taken care of in the long run. But you said a lot of things. I mean, you know your life insurance policies, IULs, whole life, you're naming this stuff up.
Yeah.
It sounds like you had to get the education along the way.
And I teased my wife because I said, you know what? You are actually more valuable alive than dead. So you can't go before me because my wife doesn't have life insurance. And I'm like, well, you need to stay here for a while because I'm covered, you aren't. But we had actually been having a conversation about her possibly getting a low term policy or something. And this was something she brought to the table because she was always against having insurance on herself for some time. I'm like, look, it's not for me.
Right.
It's for our children. Yeah. You know, it's for the next generation. And we just want to make sure that we're able to build and accumulate, you know, financial wealth for next generations to come. So she's considering it, but I'm the one that's actually covered. And I thought we did a very good job over the last 27 years, actually. My first life insurance policy I got when I was a rookie.
Wow.
I didn't know anything about it. And after some of the financial stuff that kind of hit me, I know we'll probably talk about that a bit. Those were actually the things that I was able to lean into while I was cleaning up, the big mess, because those weren't able to be touched. No matter what happened, you couldn't touch those policies. So I would lean back on those.
So I want to relate to you, and this plays out to your wife, and maybe it is some sort of life insurance out there, but does it make sense to have also some long-term care coverage for her? And the reason I say this to you is you had a great relationship with your grandma, right?
Yes.
And I've heard you speak about the dementia and what she had, everything else. I have 4 grandparents. All of them went to the nursing home for dementia. Every one of them, right? So when I think of that, I was very close to my grandfather. Like growing up, similar to how you were with your grandmother, growing up, this guy was the pillar, right? He was the president of a manufacturing company that did conveyor belts in grocery stores. So I always looked up to him, and I would have conversations with him. Anytime I needed someone to talk to, I'd pick up his phone, and he would just be the voice of reason, help me think things through. But I remember, my grandma was trying to take care of him. And the dementia was getting so bad that strong-willed, right? They're from that generation where she's like, he ain't going to the nursing home, but guess what? She picks him up. He falls on her, knocks her down. Yeah. I just remember these conversations. He was in World War II having the conversation with my grandfather. I'd never seen it before. I've never seen that man break down. He broke down and cried in front of me in the nursing home. And I'm like, Grandpa, what's going on? He's like, every night I relived the memories of World War II. So he was like a general or a major. I don't know exactly what he was in World War II, but he had a platoon underneath him. And he went to go get supplies. All of his people got bombed and died. So he kept telling me that. And every time I would see him in the nursing home and visit him, that kept reliving. My grandma, his wife, got dementia also. And what ended up happening was she was in there for 7 years. They had, at the time, well over $1 million when they walked into that nursing home. There was about $100,000 left by the time she passed.
Sorry.
So, it's part of that, but that's such a terrible disease. And you've lived through it also. So share with me, that relationship with your grandmother. And then also, it's not the person, right? Once they get that dementia, it's not the person you remember.
Right. And, myself, just going way back to as far as I can remember, my grandmother, my mother had me at an extremely young age. My mom was 17 when she had birth with me. And but my grandmother was the rock. She was the one that would go out, work hard. She was going to factories and mills to make ends meet. We were in a 2-bedroom, 5 kids. My mom was there. But eventually my mom went out and became a sheriff, which is where she worked for 30 plus years.
She's a sheriff?
Yep.
Wow.
She became a sheriff in Palm Beach County. For over 30 plus years. They've been retired now for some years. So my grandmother was there to kind of pick the pieces and make sure, we learned discipline, we had food on our plates, and she took care of us. And I've always said, growing up, that I need to repay you. I need to do something for you. And fortunately for me, I would go when nobody was watching. I would go out on the fields and play football against the kids in the neighborhood, and I was never the best. I was never the best. I was actually the worst in the neighborhood of maybe 10 kids that would kind of meet at the fields and play. Our neighborhood alone, and our kids would go to other neighborhoods and play against those other kids on different days of the week, especially the weekends. So I just got tired of being the worst player in the neighborhood. So I started to kind of go off on my own and, train and try things and challenge myself. And, I sort of pushed myself to grow and outgrow them. I got faster than them. And when I showed back up, I was the man. And it carried over to high school football. I was never a bad student. It was moments of complacency that probably got in the way of some of my better grades. I remember flunking off the JV football team, and that hurt me so bad. I made a vow to never happen again, and that was as a freshman. From that point forward, we'll continue to have those stories with my grandmother. She was like, it's just a life lesson. Learn from it. Don't ever allow it to happen again. And I vowed to her that I wouldn't allow it to happen. Moving forward, I became the best player on my high school team, played well enough, had great enough grades to be able to get an academic scholarship to the University of Florida. From that moment forward, I told my grandmother, not knowing if I would go pro or not, it was never a dream of mine.
Really?
Most kids or most guys will say, yeah, I dreamed of going pro. I never had that dream. Wow. I just enjoy going out there competing and showing people that I can be better than them. That's all that mattered to me. And I hated losing, which was another thing.
Yeah, that's the entrepreneur spirit in us too.
Yeah.
We have it in us. We don't like losing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I despise it. So from there, I told her I was going to buy her house someday. Didn't know how. Didn't have a real plan. But God spoke through me at that moment. Fast forward a few years later, I got in some trouble at the University of Florida where I thought I was going to get kicked out of school. But my grandmother, she leaned in again, and she's like, just go and pray. God has you, make sure you go and pray. And
part of the journey.
She wanted to make sure, she reminded me to read Psalms 127. The Lord is my light, my shepherd, who shall I be afraid? And I took that with me from my sophomore year in college throughout my entire career, 13-year career in the NFL, and I read it every game day, my entire career. And every time I read it, I would think of her, and I would think of, this is my why. Other than wanting to win a Super Bowl and try to bring some victories here, this is my original why. And throughout the years, she just started to develop some memory loss and, some body fatigue and weakness. And eventually, around 5 or 6 years ago, we had to, the dementia kind of picked up. And 4 years ago, we had to admit her into the nursing facility. And she left us Halloween of 2023 to the dementia. But as you mentioned it, it's a soul there. They're no longer with us. Right. The dementia eats away at you so hard that they're there, but they're not with us, right? And it's just one of the hardest things to deal with. You're sitting there, they're alive, but they're not living.
Right.
But she taught us to be strong, even the moments when she didn't really recognize us, just being able to see a smile on her face, whether she be smiling at something from within, whatever was going on upstairs, or that small glimpse of memory that comes back and then flashes back away. You cherish those moments, and you always look back at those moments. And I kind of have a constant reminder and replay of, this is my why. That why allows me to understand that I have to be what she was for me. I have to be that to my children.
Right. So it's always good to have that why, and that still sits with you and resonates with you today?
100,000%. And, she will always be my motivation. Just being able to look back and say, this is the journey. This is how hard she worked to get us here. I had moments of not knowing that I was being taken advantage of. I had 2 narrow misses, and I told myself after that, there won't be a third. And I started to go in and learn some stuff instead of nodding my head as if I understood the different things about investing and finance and stuff. I started to go and learn. I got the app Investopedia years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want to learn things, you have to be able to communicate. When you're in these rooms, you have to be able to communicate, be able to say, yes, I understand, and no, I don't. That's how you learn and you move forward. So I learned the lingo. Investopedia taught me, the different types of policies and, asset, liability, all that different stuff, which is what I didn't have growing up. We grew up poor. We didn't have anybody that was financially, everyone that grew up in my house was financially illiterate. We didn't know, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm teaching my children now. I'm sharing with them, like, look, you have to go teach yourself finance 101. Take financial literacy courses in school. And all of my children are, even down to my 13 and 15-year-old.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456-833-7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the Investment Advisor Public Disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.